Hi, everyone. I have Angelo Kapp joining me here today. I know Angelo from Saginaw's LLEAD. I'll let you say the whole thing out loud. It's
Yeah.
Latin
So
leaders.
yeah. So leader. LEAD stands for Latino Leaders for the Enhancement of Advocacy and Development. It's a bit of a tongue twister.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that is. Okay, so why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us what do you do?
So my name's Angelo Kapp. I'm the vice chair for the Saginaw LEAD chapter. I've been on the board since 2019. And what we do with the Saginaw LEAD, we focus on education and business. Primarily with the education, we're focusing on K through 12 and college, such as offering FAFSA workshops, bilingual book giveaways, and we're trying to right now we got a big project. We're trying to send students to the USHLE conference in Chicago in February, so that's really big. And then as far as the business side goes, we're reaching out to businesses because we want to help our small mom and pop Hispanic business owners, get educated on how to better do their taxes or how to do social media marketing,
Mm-hmm.
things of that nature.
Okay.
So when we can create the networks for them to thrive, our community will thrive.
Mm-hmm. And then so is that like your full-time job, you get paid to do that? Or
No, so it's all volunteer based. Yep,
okay. All right.
yep.
So what do you do for like a living?
So currently, right now, I'm on disability. I had a motorcycle accident back
Oh,
in
that's right.
July of 2022. But before that, I'm still employed with SC Johnson in Bay City. We make 85% of the world's Ziploc bags. So over there, I was a warehouse technician. I the boxes, the cases would come down the line, and a palletizer would make them into a nice big giant cube on a pallet, and we would send them out, load them on trucks, and send them out.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
Yeah.
Um so now you're volunteering because you are unable to work. Um So tell me kind of what led you to go to college? Like growing up, was it something that your parents like enforced or were strict about, or kind of tell me a little bit about that.
So in high school, well, K through 12, it was about like eighth grade, and I was very studious, right? I mean, everything kind of came easy to me, especially math, right? And I went to a parochial school, and so a lot of things were very, I guess, elevated compared to public schools, right? Um, but then in eighth grade, I had got expelled, and so I went to White Pine Middle School, right? And they placed me in a learning, they call them LCs, learning communities,
Hmm.
but the learning community that I was in, um, it was below my pace, right? And so, since I got expelled or whatever, I had just like kind of gave up. You know what I mean? I just want to have a vacation, right? Because what had happened at the other school, you know, they were I got expelled just because they didn't like me, right?
Hmm.
And so I kind of, had a self-defeated mindset where like, okay, I'm just gonna enjoy my time, right? So at White Pine, I didn't really apply myself. And then I took that mentality through high school, right? I just did the bare minimum, you know. So after high school, I signed up for Northwood because that's one school I definitely want to go to for business, for advertising and marketing. And I took a semester, and like right before finals, I had got a real bad flu. And so I wanted to see if they could make some arrangements so I could take my finals and still pass that semester. And they basically told me to just start fresh, just start over in a new semester. And I was a transit student, right? So I would drive from Saginaw to Midland like twice a day, sometimes. And so at the time, like gas first peaked at $3 a gallon. I was driving a 93 Cadillac sedan DeVille and burning like $50 worth of gas. And at that time, that's a lot of money for me. I didn't really have parents that had money to help me pay for school, right?
Mm-hmm.
So after, they said, just start over another semester, I kind of felt like, you know what, I'm gonna try out the workforce, right? And my mindset was like, I'll always give it 120% when I actually work at a job, right? Because in school, it's like I'm not getting paid for it. That this is kind of boring. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
really doing what I want to do, which was advertising and marketing. And so I worked for Pepsi Bottling Company. I was a merchandiser for the Flint office. And then I got the opportunity to work at an automotive plant, Delphi Chassis, which later became TRW. And then in 2014, on Valentine's Day, they decided to close the plant. So I would say maybe 95% of the workforce was let go, and the remaining workforce had to close out the plant, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but since we all lost our jobs, we were awarded government funding called TRA, Trade Readjustment Agreement. And back in 2009, I was laid off, right? Because the automotive industry is all about the economy. It has ups and lows. Um, so come to find out, I had two benefits, one from 2009 and then one from 2014. Um, so, people were kind of, figuring out about this program and trying to make their next moves because some people already had college, right? They had some classes where they maybe only needed a year. And so for them, they decided to go back to school. So, my original goal was to move down to Austin, Texas, and start a food truck business, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I had received buyout money, which they gave everybody 40,000, but after taxes, more like 26,000 and some change.
Mm-hmm.
And we could get unemployment for about a year, I believe. So I was gonna take my little buyout money and do a food truck and run with it, right? I mean my passion is cooking. Um, but I decided, when will I ever get the opportunity to go to school for free? So with the program through the government, they paid for all my schooling, they paid for all my supplies, they gave me mileage, right? And they also like assisted with that with anything that I needed, right? Because they really wanted to get me back in the workforce. But the catch was um, I was going to do a 4-year degree, which you could do training in any field, right? You could do any degree you wanted to, but the catch was you had to get it done within like 3.5 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of hard. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I would have like 19 credit semesters, um, and coach both of my kids' basketball teams and stuff like that, and I made it through. But then in 2018, I stopped going for a while. And back in 2017, I had to stop going because I had to get my gallbladder removed. So, when I was in school, as long as I had verified proof that I needed to be off, I could still remain in the program. But then COVID came back around, right? And so when I was thinking about going back to school during those years, I was like, I don't know about it. Everybody was like, what is this new uh, disease out here? Like, I'd rather be safe, and I don't want to get my grandmother sick or my mother or anybody like that. So I kind of waited to see what had happened. But this year, since I'm getting a little bit better with my health from my motorcycle accident, I only have 4 more classes to get my bachelor's degree. And I have to say, like, when I was going to Delta College, there were certain classes that I just didn't have no interest to, right? But I tried to pick the best electives I could so that they would pertain to advertising and marketing, right? And a lot of people that I talked to, they were, in the same program with me, and they're like, "Oh, I'm going to do the history of rock and roll." And for me, it's like, why are you going to take a class that you necessarily don't have an interest in, right? If
Mm-hmm.
you could pick your elective, why wouldn't you pick something closer to your career or your
Mm-hmm.
industry, right? So I picked graphic design, and that really helped me out. But at my time at Delta, um, I was involved with 5 organizations, 5 clubs, right? And so my mentality had switched from when I was younger. to when I was older, right? Because I have four kids. At the time, they were going to four different schools, and I had to be an example to them, because I wanted to show them that even though I'm older than, normal college students or,
Mm-hmm.
fresh out of high school college students, that even at my age, I could still be competitive to compete with them, right? And that was my mentality. So when I was at Delta, I was involved in as many things as I could be in because I treated it like a job, right? When I worked in the automotive industry, I would work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, and the most days I'd work was probably like 50 days straight, you
Mm-hmm.
know. Um, but it was backbreaking work, right? It's very labor intensive, and you know, when you're in school, you're using more of your mind, right? So it's a different kind of strength that you have to. It's like a muscle. You got to build your muscle strength, and so just really meeting the right people, and you know, thank God that the first class that I had, um, my professor, it was a political science class, right? And the professor was the chair or advisor for Citizens in Action. And so that was really like a engagement club at Delta, right? And so just from creating that relationship with her, that was my first interaction with Delta. I really felt like I wasn't a number, and I felt like I was a person, an individual, right? And because of the smaller class sizes, um, that you get at Delta compared to like a larger university, I felt like it was easier to create relationships with the administration, right? Um, so with being part of some of these clubs, I got to go on a lot of trips around the country and network even more. And it like I said, I treated going to school like a job. So I had told my family, like, don't expect me to come for birthday parties, Christmas, Thanksgiving. Like, this is like a job. If I was going to work the weekends or the holidays at my job, you wouldn't, you wouldn't say, well, I wish you were there. You got to be here. So, my schoolwork, I go Monday through Thursday, but I have to complete my homework, And since I was taking more than 12 credits sometimes, I tried to manage my time as best as I could. And that meant staying up like at 2 to 3 in the morning and then getting right back up 7 or 8 o'clock and getting the kids off to school. And, just being a parent and going to school, it's a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to wear multiple hats. But, at the end of the day, your kids watch, what kind of work that you're doing. And it's a sacrifice for everybody, right? So when I was downstairs in the basement, that's where my office would be. Um, I would try to take little mini breaks to kind of check on them and tuck them in and put them to sleep and stuff like that. But then as soon as they're down for the night, I'm back downstairs and I'm doing it to 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. But I also learned better study habits, right? Um, and I really looked at how the girls would take notes because I believe that women are more meticulous, right? They're more organized than I think men are. Um, and so I kind of like looked at them writing notes in their journals, putting deadlines in there, and I kind of adopted that strategy to have better project management, right? And it definitely paid off because I started taking online classes, which I wasn't a big fan of because I like the interaction in person, right? I want to
Mm-hmm.
hear the
I'm not a big
conversations.
fan of online classes either.
Yeah. To me, I want the interaction. I want to see what are we going to talk about because we learn from people's experiences, right? Everybody's past experience, you could learn what they're thinking of and how they think, right? And as far as advertising and marketing, you need to have those different perspectives. You need to know what kind of target market you're advertising for, right? Because I would say everybody has a little bit of something in them that you might not even know that they were a consumer of, right? So you can't really judge a book on its cover. But with me doing some of these online classes, the professors really had a rubric, right? for the class, and I was able to kind of uh, do some of the work in advance so that I could always stay on top of things. So I think that that's a benefit for online classes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, usually at the last minute, like a Sunday at 8 o'clock, the discussion is due on the online learning, and that's when everybody would put their comments in. So you kind of lose on that aspect, right? Of good feedback because everybody's just doing it because you want to get the credit, right? Um, but as far as like if you're a go-getter and a doer and you could, maintain your time management, then online classes for some classes are good. For me, for math, I took a blended class and that was horrible because of when you're using some of the software, right? If you don't put in the right symbol on for the answer, it will come up wrong. But really you have it right, but it's just you didn't put the right symbol. And sometimes with these computers, it's not hard, it's hard to input those symbols. So I really for me it just math does not work online for me. That's one of my classes that I struggle with. And that's actually the last four classes that I have to do to get my degree, which I was always dreading, like, please let me just, get my degree in the 3.5 years. I don't want no trouble. And, I try to get tutors and, math is, you really have to work, for me, you really have to work at it because the algebra, like letters and numbers and all this stuff, you don't use it after college. You don't use it. Um, for the most part, right? The majority of people will not use that kind of math. Um, but then also, with me being back in school and taking care of the kids and everything like that, and going on trips, um, I got to really rely on my younger brothers because my younger brothers both have their degrees. Um, one of my brother, he graduated from Michigan State with criminal justice, and then my other brother, he's still in school. He's pursuing a doctorate in higher education. And it's, sometimes I always tease him. I say, you still haven't learned your ABCs. You're still in school. But he's very different from me because we went to public schools in the beginning, but then we went to a parochial school. And I think, something inside of him just tripped, like switched, I should say. And he would stay up to like 2 o'clock in the morning in like fifth grade doing homework. And I'm like, dude, why are you up late? Like, I'm going to sleep. I'm tired. But he would stay up doing his homework. And that's how much discipline he had. And so to be able to rely on my younger brothers and ask them for advice for school, it was like a good feeling. You know what I mean? Because as an older brother, I always thought like, I got to teach them this. I got to teach them that so they learn. And going to my younger brothers and asking them for help, it was just a humbling experience,
Mhm.
because they achieved that at a younger age, and I chose to have a family and work, and so it created like a deeper respect because now I could actually relate to how school is sometimes. I didn't get the full campus experience like staying on campus, but communicating with professors, meeting deadlines, making sure my papers were in the right format, right? Um, just things of that nature. Like they were able to help me out, and they guided me along my path to make it a little bit easier. So that's kind of where I'm at, and I would say my program that I did was advertising and marketing. It was a 2+2 program between Delta College and Northwood University. Um, since I attended Northwood when I was younger, right? I always had like affinity towards a school. Like I was like, man, I can't wait to be there. Like it's gonna be awesome. I'm gonna finally be at a school that you're in your major, like your first class. Like you're
Mhm.
you're doing it, right? But I would have to say though that Delta just felt completely like home to me compared to Northwood. And I was involved in DECA, which is a business organization in high school and college, right? And I was able to participate in state conferences and national conferences. But really, since I had more life experience than people that just graduated high school and went to college, that gave me a competitive edge because I kind of already knew how the world worked. And when you're fresh out of high school, your perspective is very small, right? Unless you had the opportunities in life and your family has, you know, the capabilities to let you see the world, right? Your perspective is so small. So with me being a parent and working and understanding how the business world works and how industries work, I kind of was more inept on what's reality and what's not reality, right? And so that made me be able to do very well in some of the statewide competitions. Like I got second place in human resources 2 years in a row. Then I was a finalist for advertising and marketing, or advertising campaign, and then that allowed me to go to nationals in DC. Um, but that's it's super competitive when you get over there because you're dealing with college students from all around the country, and it's advertising campaigns are very they're very and they're large, right? You got to really know your numbers. You got to really do everything, and the people that are judging you are professionals. So
Mm-hmm.
you kind of get to see like, is this doable? Is this realistic? What are you missing? Oh, those are some things I didn't think of. But it was a great experience. But I would say specifically for my degree, advertising and marketing, I was already searching YouTube videos, right? I was searching things online. I would follow people on social media that were doing something that I wanted to do, right? Because my goal is to have my own social media marketing agency, right? That's my passion. Ever since I was younger, I always wanted to know as a kid, watching Saturday morning cartoons, why do I want to buy this GI Joe set, right? Like these commercials of these kids playing with these toys, like I know my parents couldn't afford this $100 set or $200 set. I mean, back in the 90s, that was super expensive. And
Mm-hmm.
especially now, that's still expensive. But I always wanted to know as a child what made me crave, like, to have these toys. And I remember one year for Christmas, I went through like the J.C. Penney's catalog and I wrote about like 3 pages full of like items that I wanted, right? And, I just think back about like a lot of those things um, were you know where did that fascination come from with me desiring all these toys, right? So that really led me to be interested in marketing and advertising because there's a lot of psychographics in it. You got to know your demographics, consumers' behavior, everything. I mean, there's regional habits, right? It's just fascinating because it's more about how we think as a person, as an individual, but then also how do we interact as a group, right? Because when we go on trips, we just might buy something because we're on a trip and want to remember it, right? So there's all sorts of different buying habits that just makes me understand how we operate as humans better,
Mm-hmm.
right? And especially understand myself more, because it's like, would I buy that? Even if I had the money, would I want to buy that?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I just feel like with the way that school is now, we've been through so many stages in society, right? Like we had the industrial age, Renaissance age, all these different ages. Um, Recently it was the information age, right? Everything's on the website, everything's on the internet, or everything's on YouTube. But we're kind of out of that stage now. Now we're in the attention stage, right? Because now that we're being bombarded by with so much information, literally there's courses that you could buy to start your own business today. There's free information out there that you could start business. With the adaptation of technology, we can compete with some of these larger corporations like before we didn't have the opportunity. Like when I look at a multimedia company, right? Back in the day, you have these news stations that have the cameras, have the microphones, the teleprompters. They have all this infrastructure. And now with our cell phone, we have that. we could broadcast live, just like we're doing on Zoom. Like we don't have to be physically there anymore. So technology has definitely made it easier to, I would say, thrive in business. But I could give you $1 million idea, but it's about the execution, right? And that's what it boils down to it. Just because somebody's already created it doesn't mean they're the best at it, right? And I think a lot of people get complacent, and that kind of kills innovation in any market. So you really have to keep in mind with what you were trying to do in the first place, solve somebody's problem. If you can solve somebody's problem, you're going to be successful. And if people are willing to have their life, be a little bit easier and spend a little bit more time with their family and what they like to do, then they're going to buy your product or your service. So that's just where I feel like I'm at with education and continuing to educate myself because, like I said, in college, I was in a couple different classes, like a sociology class, right? That's something that, I felt like, what am I going to get out of this? But I learned about a lot of tests that they would do or experiments to children, right? I can't remember the exact name of it, but back in the day, they had a group of students, and I think it was like in kindergarten or first grade, but they would correlate them to animals, right? And it's almost like an apex predator system. So you got your lions and tigers; those are your number ones. Those are the people that are going somewhere. Then you have your more docile animals, like maybe a monkey or a giraffe or something like that. They're going to do good in life, but they're not going to thrive as much as the A students, right? And then finally you got your the lowest of the low, like maybe a fish compared to a shark, right? Or you have a snail compared to um, a sloth or something like that, right? And so throughout this experience, the teachers gave better preference over the students that had higher classifications, right? And those students, um, they tracked them to adulthood, and they found out that they thrived in life, like they had everything that you would want, what you would call the American dream. And the students that were at the bottom of the totem pole, well, they were the ones that were locked up in prison. They were the ones that were involved in criminal activities. And I think about you know um, just how their future changed at an early age, where the parents, they didn't understand that, you know what I mean? But somebody else had a direct impact on their child's life. And really, when you think about that, that's a scary thought. I mean, if you look at the education system, there's always been different practices going on and what's work and what don't work. But what happens to the effects of what happened that should have never happened, right? You can't say, well, I'm sorry, and hope that things are okay. Like this has impacts on people's generations, like their family. And it's just unfortunate that, sometimes we're used as experiments, as pawns in the system. Um, but from realizing that from that class, that was like a huge, huge thing to me. Because, it just brought things back home for me, especially like growing up in the city schools. There's not a lot of funding, right? And there's not a lot of people that look like me, especially in high school. I mean, especially in high school and college, right? I think people do better if they see people that look like them in administrative roles, right? When you see people and they can relate with you and kind of have you a support system, right? And unfortunately, there's not a lot of Latinos that are, attending Delta in the Northwood. So, when I was in classes, people would ask me, well, how is it? I can't be a representative for the Latino community. I have my own perspective, and everybody else has their own perspective. So I used to kind of feel like, I'm not the representative for everybody, but I always wish like I had more of counterparts that were with me in the school. So like, we could kind of do things together because, not having somebody with your same ethnicity, it's kind of hard to, um, I wouldn't say get along, but it's kind of hard to create relationships when people, treat you different. I was born here in Michigan. I'm American like anybody else, but I still represent my culture, you know, Mexican American. Um, but yeah, I guess, some people, um, with Saginaw being so small, there's not a lot of culture here to begin with. So people kind of judge you, on your outside appearance instead of, getting to know you and say, "Oh, you're into that? Me too. Oh, you don't like that? Me too." It's more like, you look a certain way, so you must act a certain way. And, that's why I feel like, I don't care if people judge me by how I look. Um, I never judge a book by a cover because you never know. You never know what that person is inside until you actually want to get to know them. And that takes energy and time. So I always say there's always teachable moments. Even if you're not in school, there's informal and formal. A lot of these uh, people get caught up on titles and degrees, right? We live in a society where you meet somebody, and especially in the Western society, it's like, okay, what do you do? Because I got to put a title on you. I got to put you in a box,
Mm-hmm.
right? And what your title is, what your degree is, that's how much respect I'm going to give you. And I kind of look at it like there's a lot of billionaires and millionaires that have informal education that are smarter than some of these people with degrees, right? Like the saying goes, C's get degrees, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you think of, some of these people in the business industry, they hire the best because they got the money to, but they spent their time building something instead of following a plan that somebody already created, right? So that's kind of like, my mentality. I don't like to be part of a system that's gonna tell me what I have to do. Why can't I have the freedom to decide what I want to do and then create opportunities for others, right? To share their culture, um, and everybody wins. When we have more diversity, everybody wins because nobody likes wearing the same color shirt. Nobody likes wearing the same kind of shoes. We don't like eating the same kind of food every day, you know. Um, and that's where I think like we have to be more cognizant of people's cultures because we might look at somebody and say, oh, they're black or they're white or they're Mexican or whatever. They could be something totally different, you know? And especially with the Latino population, like there's so many different uh, ethnicities within that, like colors. Spanish isn't Spanish everywhere. There's different words that have different meaning in other places. So you can't just group us all together. There's a lot of diversity within the Latino community. So, one of my things with LEAD is creating awareness about that and educating people that there's more than Mexicans, right? When people think about, people coming from the border, they always think about Mexicans, right? And it's always stereotypical of somebody cutting your grass, doing manual labor. But there's people from all over the world that come from the border, come from the south. There's people that come from the north too. They just don't talk about it, right? So, I think every time you meet somebody new, it's a teachable moment because you get to hear their perspective. You don't have to believe what they believe in, but you get to, understand what experiences shape them to think the way they do. And as I think as a person, we should always continue to have education on our forefront because I don't want to be stagnant. I want to grow. Where I'm at today, I wasn't a year ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
Physically, right? But even mentally, um, sometimes you could digress, right? And you go through certain experiences where it's like you're just focusing on one thing, your health, right? That's your main focus sometimes. Because that's most important. Without your health, you have nothing. Um, but I definitely think like there's a lot of opportunities to always educate yourself on something new. and that doesn't have to mean read a book or watch a TV show. Just having a conversation with somebody. You never know
Mhm.
what you'll learn.
Absolutely. So do you feel like what are you doing to make the world a better place? So do you feel like your work with LEAD is that, or what do you feel like you're doing to help in the world?
So,
And we got 2 minutes.
right. I don't necessarily think on a larger scale of a worldview, but I think about the impact that I could do locally, right? Because you don't know what your impact's gonna have on that person or somebody else, where that your actions could lead to like a domino effect, right? To have them have certain actions. And then you all of a sudden you never know, like somebody that had interaction with that person could be the next person to go to college or be the next senator, the next artist, the next musician. It's just about being positive, having that positive energy, because it's easy to have the negative and just saying, well, it costs too much to buy grocery, it costs too much for gas, it costs too much for this. If you look at the negative, all you'll see is negative.
Hmm.
If you look at the positive, you see opportunity. And that's kind of how I tend to view the world. There's so much opportunity out here.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to be able to be a part of it. I am also excited about that trip in February to the conference, and I'm
Oh
excited
yeah.
about that. So I definitely am on board with that. So, well, thank you so much for your time and telling me your story and hanging out with me. Um, I will let you go now.
Thanks for having me
All right,
on, and
you're
keep
welcome.
keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks. Talk to you later.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.